school at the end of May and early June. So how could we have ever known if that was the case, right? That it was going to be the first time that either of our cities saw 100 degrees in like a decade. So it was just like, it would have been impossible to know that.
Yeah. Don't drop never make too big of conclusions out of something. Sometimes the weather for that day or the weather for 2 days, it's just the weather for those 2 days. I mean, like this week, you could take those 2 days out of our weather and it's a really warm week. But we had that 2-day winter that we told you about for like a week, and now we're going back to the 70s for the second weekend in a row.
Yeah. 77, basically bookending our Sundays, but in between that we had a high of 48. So it's like, there's no correlation there. Tim, I'm so excited for Tuesday. I'm so excited for the big reveal of y'all's winter weather outlooks. Is there any kind of tease you can give us?
It's interesting.
Other than Russia?
Well, I think Russia. It's always about Russia. Russia weather experts.
Exactly.
We're looking globally, right? So I do think, it is interesting when you look at these things. We tend to look at the globe to get clues about what weather we could have. And I do think that this year there are kind of some mixed signals. Some signals that would point you to saying, gosh, we might have better chances for cold and snow. And then there are others that are pointing the other way. So it's kind of, resolving those different mixed signals all in a warmer world. It's 2025 where we also always factor in climate change into our forecasts too. It'll be interesting. I do think that there's hope for snow lovers. And whenever people ask me, are we going to get snow this year? I say we almost always do. You might not remember it because you only remember the big ones, but almost every year we get snow. There's only a couple on record without much significance, some of them in recent years. But I think there's enough reasons for hope, especially early on this year. But we'll talk more about that on Tuesday.
Well, we're really looking forward to it. Cannot wait. Tomorrow, we're also going to have a really fun show as well. We're going to talk to Climate Central about the fact that they're picking up the billion-dollar disasters, that used to be done by NCEI. And so that will be a fun little show there. And we'll be ending a wild week of weather with the Northern Lights, snow, and multiple days with high temperatures in the upper 70s. So, Tim, if you don't have anything else to add, I guess we're getting close to the end of the show.
We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Enjoy the weather.
You have a good night, Tim Buckley.
Hey folks, hope you're doing well. We appreciate you sticking with us here for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus, and we'll be together for the next couple of hours here, diving into all the breaking news and live feeds that we're seeing. And to start off here, we got some sports headlines. You might have been watching, hopefully, for the news at 5 here on WCNC Plus when we talked about this change with the MLS schedule. So we had a lot of questions here on our team about why is this happening? What the impact could be for Charlotte FC and for fans who like to watch. So with that, we want to get over to our sports and Charlotte FC and soccer aficionado, Jeb Goldman, a producer here on Live Impact News. Jeb, you had some questions that you'd like some answers to, and you've got a guest as well who can help explain.
Yes, Vanessa, I'm joined by Jake Zivin, who you may have heard calling some of the MLS's best games this season. And Jake, let's just break it down real simple. What are the big changes that we're expecting to see with this new schedule change?
Yeah, first of all, just a massive change as far as when the games will be. The season will now run from essentially the late summer, right, until the late spring, early summer. And the offseason will be in the summer instead of the winter. That aligns MLS with most of the other leagues in the world, particularly all the big major European leagues. And it's a change from how the league has been running for 30 years. It's seismic. It's one of the biggest changes in the history of this league. It's one that was well thought out, that I think a lot of people thought was coming. But it is a big one nonetheless. It won't happen next year. It will happen starting in 2027. And there's many reasons for it. The big one, Jeb, is the transfer market. It will allow MLS to bring in better players and to get basically the best out of the players that leave MLS to go to European clubs.
And that's a great point. You know, I think that's been a hang-up for a lot of clubs, especially as we try to bring in greater talent, bringing in, more star power, designated players. We've brought in Thomas Muller and Hung Sung Min with LAFC. This will now align with that schedule. Let's talk about some of the logic behind it. So I will tell you, as someone who's grown up as an MLS fan, pretty much my entire life, going to San Jose Earthquake games at Buck Shaw Stadium, Chris Wondolowski era. It's so great to see where the league has come now. One of the biggest concerns I've had about this is how much it lines up with all the other traditional American sports. I will tell you, as someone who likes the NFL and college football and NBA and really watches all kinds of sports, I liked that the MLS was a summer sport because I got to really sink my teeth into it. What do you think do you think that there will be an overlap? Do you think this will benefit, detract? Like, what do you think this will mean now that it is in competition with some of the more established American sports, for lack of a better term?
First of all, your guy, Chris Wondolowski, going into the National Soccer Hall of Fame today. That was announced.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
That's for the soccer nerds, but congratulations there.
Yes, congratulations,
look,
Chris.
Yeah, to Chris, right, of course. It is a trade-off. And I think when you talk about the competitiveness with the other leagues, yes, the summer, you were just going up against baseball, and in some cities, I live in Portland, Oregon, and called Portland Timbers games for a long time. The Timbers and the Thorns, soccer was the only game in town in the summer. But now is the perfect time to consider. We're in the playoffs right now. Charlotte FC, of course, we're just eliminated by New York City.
Yeah, we're in the playoffs.
We're in the playoffs. We are in the playoffs collectively.
Yep.
Charlotte was in the playoffs, right? Right now, it's an international break. There are no games this weekend. So we just had this thrilling round one of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And now you've got to take a week off, and then we'll resume the following weekend, the weekend of the 22nd, with the conference semifinals, then the conference finals the next week, and then MLS Cup the next week. It's not an ideal time for a break, to say the least. And more importantly, we're going up against the NFL and college football every weekend now for the most important games of the season. Last year's MLS Cup we called in Los Angeles. I think it was December 7th, same weekend as it'll be this year on the calendar. And we turn around in our booth, and one of the TVs is on whatever, ABC or CBS or ESPN, and it's the SEC National Championship game. SEC Championship game going on at the same time as our MLS Cup. That's not an ideal competitor, right? If you're MLS. So what this will do is it will mean the playoffs will be away from the NFL and college football. So while, yes, the bulk of the season, you have that, it's really going to be 6 to 8 weeks where you had your time, as you said, where you can focus on MLS and you're not distracted by the Panthers or distracted by, SEC football. or ACC football. But right now you are, and it's the most important time of the season. So I think this change will really elevate the playoffs. It will mean that in May, you're going to have the NBA, you're going to have Stanley Cup, but we all know this is the United States of America. American football is the behemoth, right? And so I think this will be a better schedule for the playoffs without the international break, without as much competition, an ability to really have momentum at the best time of year. Also, the weather will be great, right, during the playoffs, which isn't a bad thing, when it comes to actually attending those games. There have been some cold MLS Cups, which are great for the stories and great for the lore of it. But, there's a reason why all the bowl games are in the South, right? Like, let's play the big games in nice weather.
Absolutely. And I love that take. I mean, I do think May for MLS Cup will be. I will tell you, I remember watching Red Bulls Galaxy and it was Texas, someone else on. I kept channel flipping, and it was so hard to pick. Yeah. Obviously, in May, I think I speak for a lot of people when there really will be less of an overlap. So I do like that take a lot. Another thing that I just found super interesting was this winter break. We have something similar with the Carolina Ascent. They take a big break for our women's pro team here. How will that work, do you what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, look, the details as far as the exact dates were announced today. The general framework was it's going to be mid-December to early February. There will not be league games. So how that time is filled, will have to be determined. If it's just a straight break, if Leagues Cup moves to January, I mean, that's pure speculation for me, but Leagues Cup moving to January in southern markets, I don't know, something like that.
Brilliant.
Of course, could be a possibility, right? Mm-hmm. But it'll be a winter break. It's not uncommon. Germany has a winter break, not as long, but the Bundesliga takes 3 weeks off, I think, in the winter when it gets cold in Germany. It's practical. It makes sense. Take the holidays off, take New Year's off, figure out, how to deal with January, whether it's, again, giving everybody a real break, kind of a second off season and let everybody go refresh, or whether they figure out a way to fill that with games, we'll see. But there will not be regular season games at that time, and that makes sense. Look, there's a lot of northern markets in the league, and you have to schedule around potential weather with this, and it's one of the complications of the calendar switch. But obviously, it's not something that's insurmountable. And I think you'll be seeing the regular season games that are scheduled for, let's say, like the beginning of December, and then when the league comes back from the break in early February, mid-February, you're going to have the northern teams playing on the road at the teams in more mild climates for that time. You can schedule that. You can schedule it out. In a way, it's better because right now, there's the playoffs going on, and like I said, there was a freezing game in Kansas City. There was an MLS Cup in Toronto in December, right? So that you can't schedule that.
Right.
You can schedule regular season games to have Montreal go play at Orlando on December 13th. You know what I mean? If Montreal is playing in is hosting MLS Cup on December 6th, you can't schedule around that, and you got to deal with the weather there. So it does kind of make these harsh weather, cold weather dates a little bit easier because you can schedule them and put the games where you want them to be.
Absolutely, man. I think I speak for a lot of fans when I say I am excited and intrigued by these schedule changes. As I said before, I'm someone who has grown up loving watching it in the summer, but it's not going away all of summer. I mean, I really do like the opportunity for it to be a fall sport. And to your point, I think there will be some really interesting matchups right before and after the break, letting teams recalibrate, reset, and lining up with the European transfer window will hopefully be able to help set the clubs up to bring in more world-class talent, which we're doing a really good job of.
And that's the big one. I mean, that is the main reason for this move, is aligning with the transfer window. It's something that no other American sport has to deal with, right? I mean, the player movement in every other major league in America is within the league or through a draft system. Yeah, in baseball, you have players coming from Japan. There's the rare NBA player that comes kind of straight from the EuroLeague, but they go into the draft anyway.
Right.
It's very different. Soccer is a global marketplace. And Charlotte's a perfect example. They sold Patrick Agyemang during the summer window. That is a difficult decision for a team to make. And Charlotte made that decision. They ended up having Idan Tokolamadi, who was fantastic. They had a replacement for him, so it didn't hurt them, but it has hurt other teams. And it's still, you never want to trade a guy who's a key player, a starter on your team, a fan favorite, transfer, right? If to use an American parlance, trade.
Right.
You never want to you never want to, have a player leave your team in the middle of a season. It's difficult. It's a hard decision to make. But MLS teams now in the current setup are forced with making that difficult decision every summer when they've got 10 games to go maybe in their season and they think they can win a championship, but a team in Europe really likes a player on that MLS team, on Derby County, really likes Patrick Agyemang. The player wants to go because it's a step in his career. It's a step up in salary. You want to do right by the player, but you also want to keep your team's ability to contend and win a championship together. Those decisions are going to be far more infrequent now because the off seasons are going to line up, and the majority of the European teams look to turn over their roster in their off season. MLS is the same, and now you won't have this disconnect. So for players who are leaving, it'll happen at a better time. You will get kind of the maximum value out of the players also, to be honest. And then for players coming in, you're going to have a more open market. MLS teams now, in their offseason, basically have to buy the scrap heaps from European teams because it's in the middle of a European season. Right. So if a player's doing well, that European club isn't going to want to let that player come to MLS. So you're really getting players who are kind of what we would say is out of favor from their clubs. And if you want to get a player who's now kind of more available in the offseason, that's now happening in the summer, and the team signs him, and they've got 10 games to try to come in and make an impact at the end of the year. That's really hard to do. You're almost acquiring a player in July for them to hopefully give you something the rest of the season, and then next year they're going to be a full player for you. And again, that's not ideal. So those problems just go away with this calendar change. I think that's going to be the biggest impact. It's the biggest reason. It will increase the quality on the field. It will improve the business off the field as far as player movement goes, and that is no doubt the top kind of motivation behind this move.
An interesting, I think, kind of Charlotte-specific angle is Charlotte FC is beginning to gain a budding reputation of a club that develops talent. Obviously you had Agyemang, obviously Malanda leaving as well. You have Idan Tokolamadi, who came up not necessarily out of nowhere, but he was developed here, will likely leave if everything comes to pass for a handsome fee as well. Yeah. How do you think this move will help the league's reputation as a league that is, had a retirement league reputation forever? Now we're developing young talent. You had Almiron, who tore it up at Newcastle for several seasons there before making his return here. How do you think being on that same schedule will help improve the league's reputation as a league where top clubs in Europe can buy top talent?
Yeah, it's already, to your point, getting there, right? I mean, it's way beyond retirement league. No way.
Gone. Right.
Nobody who's serious about the game thinks that, right? I mean, you'll have some trolls online who will say that, but nobody who works for a European club thinks that. They already know there's a lot of talent in MLS. It has become much more of a selling league. It's also a buying league. There's no doubt about it, but much more of a selling league, which is a good thing. This will help just because it's gonna eliminate a lot of that friction, right? You're going to have teams more willing to sell their players in the offseason than they are now. There are teams who turn down moves all the time in the summer because they don't want to part from a really good player. Malanda's a great example. That worked out perfectly. In that he said, I want to stay and I want to finish out this season. I'm going to do the deal, come back on loan essentially, and then I'll head to England in the offseason, whenever our season comes to the end. But that's rare. It's rare for that to happen. Most times in that case, the player's gone. And Charlotte's losing their striker and their super talented, one of the best center backs in the league, in the middle of a season where they feel like they're a contender. And again, it didn't happen, but it could have in most situations for other teams, players like that around the league. It does happen. Now that doesn't, and so it just means Charlotte will be much more likely to say, yes, we're gonna listen to you when you come asking for Adilson Malanda, when you come asking for Idan Tokolamadi. We're gonna listen to you, and we're going to come to an agreement, and we're going to make that deal, and it's going to be better for everybody involved. So I just think it'll eliminate some of the friction of those moves, and then there'll be a higher volume of them, and then, right, of course, MLS will continue its perception as a league that where you can find really young talent, really good young talent that can then go make the next step to Europe. And honestly, it also brings MLS a step closer to being on the same level as a lot of these European leagues, because they can now be this kind of equal player in the transfer market. And now I think you'll start to see more players coming over in their prime when they're looking for a new club in their offseason, and they're considering maybe going to Spain, maybe going to Italy, maybe a club from Germany, maybe a club from the United States. It's a lot easier to kind of wrap your head around, okay, I'm going to go there and I'm going to start the season, as opposed to, wait, I'm going to go in the middle of the season. There's 10 games left. Then I'm going to have an off season. I just think both ways, it's going to elevate MLS on kind of both sides of that transfer market, so to speak, worldwide.
Well, I think it goes without saying, you have sold me on why this has been such a great move. And I was on the fence coming into this. I'll be transparent,
Okay.
journalist transparency, but I am more excited now than I ever have been. On a similar subject, MLS about to get, based on reports I'm seeing, a little easier to watch for some folks who have Apple TV. Break down what that kind of looks like.
That's official as well. So that was
Okay,
also
great.
announced
I
today.
didn't
That
wanna,
is
like-
done.
yeah.
So no, it kind of got lost a little bit, I think, in the
Right, big day.
in the news. It was a big day. Well, honestly, one of the most consequential days in the history of Major League Soccer. That is not an exaggeration. Yes. So next year, MLS Season Pass, which is what Major League Soccer has been on Apple TV, that is going away. And what MLS Season Pass is it was kind of its own tier within Apple TV. Apple TV used to be known as Apple TV Plus. It was just rebranded last month to being Apple TV. So it's just Apple's streaming service where you watch Ted Lasso and Severance. For the past 3 years, you needed to have an MLS Season Pass subscription to watch MLS. And if you already had an Apple TV Plus subscription, now known as Apple TV, you could get an MLS Season Pass subscription at a discounted rate, but you still had to get it.
Right.
You could also just sign up for MLS Season Pass on your own, and you couldn't watch Ted Lasso or Severance, but you could watch MLS Season Pass. That is all going away next year, and now it's just totally simplified. So if you subscribe to Apple TV, you will be able to watch every MLS game. You'll also be able to watch Formula One in the United States. So instead of these kind of different tiers and maybe a little more complicated of, wait, what do I need to watch this? It's going to be open to everybody. So everybody that can watch MLS can also watch Ted Lasso and watch Severance. And look, I know I'm going to sound like a company man here. I think Apple TV has the best quality of shows of any of the streaming services. They don't have the volume of like a Netflix, obviously, but everything on Apple TV is great. And man, I hope that this will bring MLS people into Apple TV so they can now watch some of these shows. And I hope that the people that are already at Apple TV that have the subscription to watch, again, the Severance, the Ted Lassos, that they can now come to MLS and watch MLS. The people that sign up for Apple TV so they can watch Formula One, now that they come to MLS. There's a great deal of a bundle with Apple TV and Peacock that was just announced last month that will allow you now to get Formula One, MLS, the Premier League. There's NBA on Peacock. It's just, I think, man, I think it's going to be a game changer for us heading into next year. I don't know if you can hear in the background. My dog is very excited about it. He's barking right now because he's fired up because he'll be able to watch it easier next year.
Dog barking here too just a moment ago.
There you go. So yeah, no, it's going to be really helpful, and I think easier for everybody to watch next year, and just bring more people in the tent, right? So just a big day for us from our broadcasting standpoint on Apple TV. Yeah, for everybody to be able to watch globally, and a big day for the league announcing the calendar change. Man, it's a lot to keep up with today, no doubt about it. But November 13th, it's going to go down as a big day in MLS
Huge
history.
day, the biggest in a long time. And I'll tell you, just so that people who are watching here from a non, I have no affiliation with Apple TV MLS, but I, as someone who's grown up watching the league from a very, very different time, the production that MLS and you guys put together, the games feel bigger. That MLS 360 is as good, if not better, than Red Zone, in my opinion, for the NFL. I mean, I think it's just they do a heck of a job, and Apple TV obviously is, to your point, just great quality shows and movies across the board. I am very excited for more people. There was all this discourse about whether or not the Apple move was good for the league, and you heard all these things, all this kind of stuff. And I get it, I understand, but I hope that people who watch now can see that this isn't just putting the league behind a paywall. It's up-leveling the quality of the production from top to bottom. The games feel bigger, the league feels bigger. So I am really, really, really excited for people to be able to experience this, experiencing you guys on the call and everything in between. It should be great. And now they can do it in a more conventional season, and in a couple of years. So it really will be very, very cool.
I appreciate that, Jeb. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's great to hear that others agree. And we're all really excited to continue this MLS on what'll be MLS on Apple TV now, and to continue to kind of raise the level of our production and of our broadcast as the league raises its level, right? And with this calendar change, it's a really exciting time with the World Cup coming in the summer. I mean, it's a really, really exciting time for soccer in this country. And specifically for Major League Soccer in this country.
It certainly is. Jake Sivan, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you giving us so much time on this Thursday night. We'll be looking forward to hearing you all throughout the league and seeing a lot more of your face. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Of course. Thanks, Jeb.
All right. And we'll send it over to our Vanessa Rufus.
Great discussion, y'all. Thanks so much for setting that up, Jeb, and for taking the reins on that. And we, of course, will keep you updated on the very latest on the sports front. You can see we cover all sorts of topics here on Live Impact News. We've got some topics to come here, so we're going to take a quick break, folks. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll peruse the feed, see what we've got cooking, and we will see you on the other side of the break. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. I want to take you back to earlier today as we saw another executive order signed by President Donald Trump alongside First Lady Melania Trump, who helped with this announcement of this executive order. Has to do with foster care, and the EO is titled Fostering the Future for American Children and Families. The administration touting how this is going to open new opportunities for public and private partnerships as it comes on this effort. Let's take a listen and watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and First Lady Melania Trump.
Good afternoon. Please. Welcome to the White House. It is truly inspiring to see everyone gather here together, united in support of this remarkable initiative and community. As I stand here and observe the audience, I recognize the vital importance of each one of you to this mission, to our future generations. In particular, I would like to thank the cabinet secretaries, Congress members, scholarship donors, and various organizations for their unending advocacy. A special thank you to my husband for his enduring commitment to fostering the future. The President has prioritized America's foster care children, and shortly he will sign our Fostering the Future Executive Order. Too many people from foster care community end up homeless, in danger on America's streets. It was 2021 when I developed the idea to establish an impactful platform with an important mission to provide individuals from the foster care community the ability to secure an entry-level job position and, in turn, financial independence. Fostering the Future, a Be Best initiative, provides individuals from the foster care community with technology-based scholarships to attend colleges and universities throughout America. Fostering the Future sets these individuals on their career paths, but more significantly, it equips each scholarship recipient with a fundamental foundation of knowledge that will endure throughout their lifetimes. Permanency for those who embody the fleeting. I applaud the American universities that have joined my mission, institutions like Vanderbilt University, University of Miami, and Villanova University. Following graduation, scholarship recipients from my program are prepared to enter the workforce and ultimately become leading executives. Predictably, they will manage thousands of employees and generate significant value for American communities through job creation, access to health care, food security, and other societal benefits. This executive order, Fostering the Future for American Children and Families, gives me tremendous pride. It is both empathetic and strategic. It will certainly be impactful. It aims to establish a comprehensive network connecting federal departments and agencies, private sector's businesses, higher learning institutions, and charitable organizations. This will create new educational and employment opportunities countrywide. Our faith-based organizations will continue playing a vital and consequential role. My hope, of course, is that this level of coordinated collaboration will sustain. But today, I call on leadership from these various organizations, including the private sector, to join my effort, rise above the ease of inaction. I predict this small spark today will ignite a profound and lasting nationwide movement. Our united resolve will foster a thriving future filled with compassion and innovation. Together, we will illuminate the pathway for today's foster children to become tomorrow's builders. And tomorrow's builders will foster the future of America's legacy. Thank you.
It
is my pleasure to introduce my husband, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
I think it's very good, especially for someone that speaks 5 languages at least. I think that's pretty amazing. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Yeah, well, thank you, Melania. And our country is truly blessed to have this magnificent and very caring First Lady. They love her. Every time I get up and make a speech, they say, "We want our First Lady." I said, "What the hell? I'm not good enough? I'm not good." But thank you very much. Great job. And it's great the work you do in so many ways. This afternoon, I'm delighted to sign a historic executive order building on the Fostering the Future initiative to make America's foster care system better, fairer, and more effective than ever before. And it's been effective, but it's moving in a very strong direction. All of this has been made possible by Melania's incredible devotion to America's youth. Spends a lot of time on it and loves it, and along with our great Usha, you spend so much time, and what a combination. First Lady, Second Lady, what a combination. Thank you. They do a great job, the two of them. They're amazing women. I want to thank Vice President J.D. Vance and Usha. Thank you very much. Vice President, stand up, Vice President. And he did a big thing today. He's going to be on television tonight with the legendary Sean Hannity, so everybody has to watch. I'm sure CNN loves this advertisement, but he will be. I heard it was a great interview. And Secretary Scott Bessent. Scott, thank you very much. An extremely non-controversial Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But he's right. And Scott Turner, thank you very much. Doing a great job at HELP. And thanks as well to Senator John Husted and Representatives Jason Smith, Darren LaHood, Zach Nunn, and David Schweikert. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, fellas. Great group. We're also joined by countless distinguished leaders in the child welfare advocacy ministry and charitable foundations, as well as so many wonderful young people who have experienced foster care and used their voices to champion needed reforms. And I want to thank everybody for being here. It's an amazing day at the White House. Thank you very much. And right behind me, by the way, in about 2 years from now, we'll use a much bigger room because we had to turn away a lot of people. And it'll be right here. This will be the entrance. That's a knockout paddle. It's called the knockout. It looks pretty nice right now, but it's going to look a lot better in a little while. And we're going to go from this room into a room that seats a few more people, and it's going to be beautiful. But I just noticed I happen to be standing here, Peter, and I thought I might as well get you a shot right now, a nice, beautiful shot at the future entrance to something that's really become very popular, the ballroom. They've wanted it for 150 years, and they're getting it, and they're getting the best. It'll be the best anywhere in the world. Each year, more than 15,000 young people age out of the foster care system, and unfortunately, too many struggle to become self-sufficient. The order I will sign in a few moments will provide vital new resources to help young people transition out of the foster care system and live a very happy and a very successful life. Very, very successful. With this order, I'm directing the heads of the key federal departments and agencies to establish a Fostering the Future program in coordination with our wonderful First Lady's office. They're coordinating, and they've already been coordinating for quite some time, and I think I hear it's going really well. You're going to have some, when she gets involved in things, it works, I can tell you that. Under this major new initiative, great American companies and institutions will be signing a pledge to invest in teaching, training, and mentoring America's youth who are transitioning out of the foster care system. This will help provide jobs, education, and personal development opportunities to fantastic young people who truly need and deserve them, and they're going to get them. A terrific example of the impact these programs can have is Eric Alvarez from Omaha, Nebraska, who is with us today. Where's Eric? Where is he? Stand up. Good-looking guy. Good-looking guy. Eric and his siblings were placed in foster care for a year when he was 9. He entered the child welfare system again when he was 15, and today he credits a mentoring and mentorship and work experience program for foster youth with helping him to finish high school and start his adult life. And he did really well in high school, by the way, really a great student. But he starts life on the right foot, right? Wouldn't you say? I mean, I think you better say yes, otherwise I'm in big trouble. Otherwise, I'm all by myself up here, Eric. That would be. I hear you're doing incredibly. Now, after graduating from the University of Nebraska and interning for Congressman Don Bacon, Eric is pursuing a master's degree at the George Washington University, and he is a cadet in the Air Force ROTC, who'll be commissioned as an officer upon graduation. And Eric, I just want to say, great job. You've really been outstanding, and I think that's probably why you were chosen out of so many people. You've done a fantastic job. Congratulations. The new initiative we're establishing will also create an opportunity for foster youth to take full responsibility of the federal tax credit scholarship program established by the One Big Beautiful Bill. So many things, tax cuts and regulation cuts, so many things. The biggest ever passed in the history of our country. I call it the Great Big Beautiful Bill. I changed the name a little bit to make it even more sublime. But it is, there's so many things in there for everybody. We had a choice. We could have done it in 9 different bills or try for the one, and everybody said, no, let's do it in 9. It'll be easier. Actually, it wouldn't have gotten done. And J.D. and I and Scott and all of us got together and we said, let's give it a shot, and we got it passed. And it was an amazing thing, but it's going to help a lot of people. There's never been anything like it. It's in one bill, there's never been anything close. And when you see what's going on with the Democrats, we're lucky we got it passed because we don't have to do anything. All we have to do is implement it now, and we'll be implementing it all over the place. If you think about it, no tax on tips, right? No tax on Social Security, all of the different things, no tax on overtime. You get deductions if you buy a car. You take an interest rate deduction, an interest deduction against your income tax. It's never happened. Nothing like this has really ever been approved to this extent. And so it is one great, big, beautiful bill. But using the tax credit will expand occupational training, education, and financial literacy programs for the foster youth and make it possible for more of them to attend the school of their choice. Choice is a great word for a lot of reasons, but it's a great thing with education. And we'll also create the new Fostering the Future online platform to help young people find the access and really get great housing, very, very important and beautiful housing, health care, and other resources available to foster youth and those transitioning out of foster care. And we think it's going to happen with many, many people, many more than you have right now. Under the Trump administration, we believe that every American child deserves a safe and loving home, and we're determined to support the amazing families who help make that happen. And we have some of those families in the room today, and I just want to thank you all for being in the White House. There is no place like this, and we want to thank you very much for being here. We're great families. Thank you very much. Faith-based, thank you. Faith-based nonprofits are the nation's most trusted institutions, interacting with the foster care system and practicing Christians and more. Think of this, more than twice as likely foster care. They'll adopt the general population. They adopt to it so easily. When they get out, they adopt to it just like it's just becomes second nature. It's amazing. Yet radical left policies in states nationwide make it much harder, not easier, for those families to open up their homes. But we're working on that. We're dealing with the radical left. It's not easy, but we're winning, and we're winning big. That's why with the order that we're doing today, we're taking the ridiculous woke policies that discriminate against Christians and families of faith As president, I will always stand by us. We will stand by our country, and we will stand for religious liberty. So important. We stand for religious liberty. The Bible tells us, thank you. Thank you. The Bible tells us that one of the measures of any society is how it cares for vulnerable children and orphans. So important, and it's so big in the Bible. So as we make America great again, we are going to protect American children in foster care, and we're going to ensure that they will never, ever be forgotten. These children will never be forgotten, and they're going to grow up to be unbelievable, strong, smart, wealthy, productive citizens. So once more, I want to thank Melania for the great job she does, not here only just as First Lady. She's a great First Lady. And I want to thank you very much, honey, and the foster families and leaders here today. You're very special people, and we're going to work together, and we're going to have some absolutely incredible results. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Please be seated.
Are you ready, everybody? This is it. Too late to change after. Should we sign it? All right. Susie, do we sign this? Good. You ask the First Lady to sign this. Let me sign this. Okay.
All right, once again, folks, there you see the president from just earlier today, alongside First Lady Melania Trump, having signed this executive order meant to bolster folks in the foster care system. We're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact News. Back in 2 minutes, we are following some breaking news, just trying to get a few more details sorted out here, but essentially a rather large fire from what we can tell in the Charlotte area. Stay with us here, and we'll be back once again in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to this breaking news that we're following out of Southeast Charlotte. As we mentioned before the break, we're trying to sort out a few details here, but we do have confirmation from Charlotte Fire that there is a rather large fire that is working in the 8100 block of Woodscape Drive. We pulled up a map so you get an idea of exactly where this is, but essentially it's going to be just off of Highway 74 Independence Boulevard, getting close to McAlpine Creek Park area. If you're kind of familiar with that area, it's going to be just north of there. In fact, just off of Monroe Road, north of Village Lake Drive. You can see as we're kind of rather zoomed in this area, does appear to be like an area of residences, if you will, although there are a bunch of different buildings, as you can see, including it appears as though some businesses around, but I do see an apartment complex not too far from here. We are waiting to hear more details, but essentially Charlotte Fire saying 2-alarm fire. So this was actually reported earlier in the hour, but within the last 9 to 10 minutes, the fire department updating its information saying that it has essentially sent a second alarm, sent a second firehouse, if you will, to respond to this breaking news. So we will keep an eye on this once again. Looks like we might have some minor delays in the area. Some red you could see towards the bottom portion of that map, leading up to the intersection that essentially takes you down the street to where the fire is reported. Probably not too surprising, since we have probably a lot of crews that are visible on scene for drivers who might be passing by, slowing down, possibly even encountering roadblocks. So more information on this to come as we continue here on Live Impact News. Once again, though, Southeast Charlotte, just off of Monroe Road, north of Village Lake Drive, a 2-alarm fire working in the 8100 block of Woodscape Drive. All right, folks, with that, we want to turn to another local headline we're watching. And if you've been following for the last several days here on Live Impact News and on WCNC Plus, watching our newscasts and a lot of our coverage of the government shutdown and impacts on folks in the Charlotte area and beyond, we've been talking a lot about the dialogue over SNAP benefits. We know at this point the government shutdown has now officially been ended, but it's been concluded, if you will, but the impact really is still being felt in the sense of food insecurity. And so we were partnering with Nourish Up to run this food donation drive. And we're seeing all of the different ways that the food pantry here in Charlotte is trying to reach out to struggling families who are trying to make ends meet. Our Siobhan Riley has been working on kind of a follow-up here for us this evening, and specifically how a lot of local groups and businesses and organizations, if you will, are jumping in to try to help. Because, I mean, quite frankly, it sounds like folks over at Nourish Up say that they're still seeing a lot of concerns with how folks are going to get their next meal.
Yes, the need is still dire for people to donate. And in fact, they are still asking people to donate money, to donate food. We were at the Food Lion in Dilworth earlier today, and they were asking local businesses to chip in. And a local business, they basically donated $100. The associates donated $100 each, and then they just did their shopping, and then they stuffed the truck there. So definitely the need is great, and probably greater now than ever, even though the government has opened back up.
No, I mean, it looks like you have some visuals that you were able to get kind of showing an event, a specific event, which sounds pretty neat. And you were also able to talk to folks at the pantry. So I guess share some of your takeaways from being able to see how this event went down, and also what are folks over at Nourish Up and other folks who are involved with these efforts telling you about just how dire the situation is?
Mm-hmm. Well, so what happens is associates will spend $100 only on essential items, and they go in the store, and it's kind of like a contest to see who can get the closest to $100. And just the excitement in there, the people who were doing the shopping, some of them were a little stressed just trying to make sure they got to $100 and everything they needed. But just seeing that effort in the community really makes a difference. And Nourish Up is definitely elated. They are so excited that people are chipping in. I was so shocked to see how quickly everything was starting to fill up, just from, it was probably at the time maybe 20 people. And then more and more people started coming and chipping in. And $100 really does make a difference on
Yeah.
food, especially.
Well, and we wanted to kind of drive that home for folks. You know, and we started that with the call to action, essentially, for our community to make an impact when we were talking about this donation drive that we were partnering with Nourish Up over when the government shutdown was underway. And they said that they were seeing this spike, this 20% bump in folks who were coming to them for help when the government shutdown was in progress, if you will. But, I mean, it is pretty staggering to kind of see the number of folks who are, you know, coming for help. And I was at a donation or distribution drive rather not too long ago, just several days back, and there were folks who really seemed like this might have been their first time ever trying to come for help. They kind of didn't know where to go. They were asking, like, is this the place where you get help for food? It was heartbreaking to see, you know, kind of just the scope of the need out there.
Yeah, extremely heartbreaking. Even the woman that I spoke with today, she has kind of a heartwarming story because she just got out of the hospital for heart failure. And she told me that she's going to have to leave her job very soon because there's no way that she can keep up with the heart failure issue that she's having. And so she is now relying on these services, and just being inside of her home and seeing, I mean, she was showing me, she said, I'm about to make tacos tonight. And it's because of organizations that like this, that you can go to the food pantry and get the necessities that you need. And she was just saying how important it is for people to give. Just hearing her story really does make you understand the impact of people donating.
Yeah, it makes me think about a piece that we had a little bit earlier this evening, and it was a study from Bank of America Institute where they essentially found that 1 in 4 U.S. households are living paycheck to paycheck. And it actually made me think about the visual of that, in that, you know, you can get 4 people in a room essentially, and one of you is likely living to paycheck. And some of the stats on that, 95% of those folks, that that quarter, or 25%, if you will, who are really struggling, spending 95% of their income on necessities, it essentially leaves nothing else, you know, no padding, no real savings that you're able to save. And this is one thing that I feel like Nourish Up has driven home for so many folks. You know, we're all kind of just one major emergency away from being in these lines too. You know, in so many cases, that's the case for folks. It's just, it's troubling.
It definitely is, and that's why I think the woman I spoke with, her story really hits close to home, because she's now going to have to leave her job and find something a little less stressful. But I can only imagine not being able to put food on the table. That's heartbreaking. So, of course, an organization like this truly does make a difference.
All right, Siobhan, thank you so much. I'll remind people that Siobhan's piece is going to run tonight at 11 here on WCNC Plus, as we are in our normal newscast at that time. So you'll have to keep it here as you stream us throughout the evening, and make sure that you stay around for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, folks, time for a quick break. Back in 2 minutes on the other side. We'll check the feeds, see what's popping up, and also see if we can get some more information on that breaking news, that fire underway in Southeast Charlotte. 2 alarm. All right, folks, we got a few updates here to share about this fire that's underway in southeast Charlotte. We just had this for you as breaking news here in the Live Impact News studio just moments ago. Once again, a look at the map. You can see it's pretty close to Monroe Road, and it is north of Village Lake Drive. Trying to get a few more details about exactly what kind of building this is impacting, but we do know that there are businesses around here based on the map and also residences. So we do have a crew now on the way to the scene. Hopefully we'll get you some live images as soon as we can. Meantime, some confirmation from Medic that they are sending the mass casualty unit, saying at this time we're providing support services for our fire partners. Now, we just wanted to kind of reiterate for folks, who have heard us talk about this mass casualty unit before, it does not necessarily mean there are mass casualties. This is merely a mobile unit that has a lot of capabilities regarding medical care, but also places for firefighters to be in if they need to. I remember the last time we talked about this here, in fact, on Live Impact News, specifically myself, but this was during a fire event during the summer when it was very, very hot, and they actually sent that mobile unit out there, almost like a cooling station, if you will, or place for firefighters to get some relief from the heat. So once again, this 8100 block of Woodscape Drive, a 2-alarm fire where we now are hearing from Medic, mass casualty unit is coming to assist fire crews, and we'll drive home once we learn more about potential injuries. We'll pass it along. Mass casualty unit does not always mean that there are mass casualties. So keep it here on Live Impact. We'll have either a pop in with more updates or a live feed for you soon, as we have a crew that is en route as we speak. All right, with that, we're going to turn to a big announcement on the day. Coming off the heels of this shutdown concluding, we've got Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem with an announcement earlier today talking about a reward essentially for TSA agents she says have gone above and beyond with their duties, even as they were working, not getting paid, and now a big bonus for some of them.
And endured those hardships and continued to shine a light on really what is special about America. We have Rico, who is with us today, Mr. Walker, and I would like to focus on Rico a little bit today because he is not only a 20-year officer, but he's also a member of the National Deployment Force, which means that he takes on extra responsibilities at TSA. He not only fulfilled every one of his hours during this shutdown, but he also was more than willing to take on extra shifts to make sure that the public didn't have any kind of hardships, delays, or security concerns during this government shutdown that was facilitated by the Democrat Party. I also have Ashley next to me. Ashley has continued to serve at TSA. I believe she came to work here in January and showed up and has been an example of an excellent employee, but she also during this time was through the process of trying to buy a home when the government shut down. She was going to be moving and excited about undertaking that change in her life with her family, and that had to stop dramatically when her paycheck quit coming because of what was happening with Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party refusing to ensure that our security officials were getting their paychecks. I'm hopeful that she will be able to go and purchase a home soon now that that has been restored, that this bonus check will be helpful to her and her family at pursuing the American dream of home ownership, and that also, as we talk about her, that her example of optimism and cheerfulness despite these kinds of hardships will be something that the rest of our TSA employees can look to, but also the American people, recognizing that even when these challenges come, that we can take them on and continue to be an encouragement to people around us. So today, though, we have many other TSA officers here that I'm going to be handing bonus checks to. Every single one of these individuals served with exemplary service, which means they were an example of not only taking seriously the security concerns and measures that TSA has to every single day in the Department of Homeland Security, but also they went above and beyond. They helped individuals, they served extra shifts, they helped with transportation of people getting back and forth to work, other challenges that families may have. They were all examples of what we need, and we will be continuing to not only recognize employees across the country, but we will be looking at every single TSA official that helped serve during this government shutdown and do what we can to recognize that and help them financially with a bonus check to get them and their family back on their feet. So with that, Rico, I want to present to you a check and say thank you from the American people. Appreciate it. Ashley, thank you. Yes. And is Leo here? All right, Leo. There you go. Thank you so much for all of that. And Karen, yes, thank you, Karen. Yes, sir. How long have you been? Fantastic. Are you a team? How is it? Good. Thank you. Make sure that you're right name. That's Carlos. Yes, thank you so much. And this is Merlin. Richard. Carla. Thank you. You are Jason. Correct. Good. Sonia. Thank you. I'm also incredibly grateful for everyone in this community, this airport, the private companies that stepped up and helped support these families during the government shutdown when their paychecks stopped. And I just can't say enough about the partnerships that we've been able to build in light of this tragic situation when the Democrats shut down the government, that we still saw the best of America. We saw people come together and support each other, take care of each other, and go above and beyond to make sure that the mission of the Department of Homeland Security was fulfilled, that it was to keep the American people safe with honor and with integrity, and that we can continue to do that. I do want to recognize our Federal Security Director, Juan Sanchez, who is with us today, and thank him for his service and all of his hard work to take care of people and keep them safe each and every day. He also has two deputies, Jimmy and Jose, who help him every single day in this role and in this facility. And I also am extremely grateful for how they have partnered together with those private companies, individuals, and donations to make sure we were taking care of our frontline individuals, keeping our security measures in place. There's a lot of exciting things going on at TSA, a lot of good news, and we're grateful that we are able to not only support the families that are a part of our workforce, but that also we've been able to implement policy changes that make travel easier for those individuals who go through TSA. I think everybody is very happy about the security measures and technology that we've implemented, but then also allowed people to do different measures going through security lanes, such as keeping your shoes on, and still going through the technology that's necessary to make sure that we have safe transportation systems. We are implementing veterans lanes and military lanes so they can have a special screening process that's expedited for them, being grateful for their service to our country. And also we're implementing family lanes across the country for families that may have small children, recognizing that that's a little bit of an extra challenge getting through the TSA security checkpoints, and we want to make sure we have extra help there and extra measures to help do it in a way that can be pleasant and enjoyable for that family as well. We're continuing to make sure that the investments at TSA facilitate the traveling public. They support the individuals that live in this country, but also the commerce of this country, to make sure that our businesses and our families that make the backbone of America continue to be successful and to be safe while they do that, meeting the emerging threats we may face from around the world. We're grateful for these TSA employees behind us today. We're grateful for their example, what they mean to America, the fact that they show up even on a bad day. They continue to do their work, and they do it with embracing the mission of TSA, which is to serve the public and to keep people safe. Many of them took an oath to this job because they recognize the threats that America faces, and they wanted to serve in this position to help keep people safe. I think that's remarkable. We need more people like that in this world today, and I think they're all great Americans. So thank you for your service, and with that, I will ask Juan, did you want to say a few words? I'll let you open it up to you, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all. Couple of words. I really just want to thank my entire leadership team for getting us through this challenging time. For the many leaders across the country at TSA, I know it's been really tough, but thank you for bearing in there and hanging out and looking after our people. That's exactly what it's about. We couldn't have done it without these officers behind me and the entire leadership team. It was an entire group effort. We were supported by the airport community, our key stakeholders in Houston, and likely across the country. So thank you all. And my hat's off to every TSA employee. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. With that, we'll open it up to any questions you may have. Yes, sir. This is not everybody here that works at this airport that will be getting checks. We're going to continue to evaluate every single employee that helped during the shutdown and stepped up and went above and beyond. Sure.
That means those who have to call out sick, those who have to stay home with their children, for example, might not be getting one of these checks.
That's not necessarily the parameters. We're going to look at every individual that did exceptional service during this period of time when there were so many hardships. So the mission of Transportation Security Agency is to facilitate safe travel for commerce and for individuals. They go through our country's airports. People who met that mission and went above and beyond are the folks that we're focused on. Yes.
Also wondering what was the total amount of people who were working unpaid in TSA?
Oh, there was tens of thousands of individuals that stepped up and continued to serve. Many of them took on extra shifts, much like Rico did, to fill in for individuals who couldn't necessarily be there every single day. But we're so proud of every single individual, whether they were a frontline agent at a security gate, whether they were administrative. There was many of them that made sure that things still continued to operate at our airports that needed to be done, and tens of thousands of individuals did extraordinary things during this shutdown that we're so grateful is over after 43 days. Yes?
Hi, Sean with CBS News. Just curious, when will TSA workers receive their back pay? We've heard that air traffic controllers might start saying about 70% of their back pay in the next day or so. Is the state going to apply for these TSA workers across the country?
Yes, we're facilitating that as soon as possible. They've already missed pay periods and recognizing that that's a hardship on their families. So we did all of the administrative work that we needed to late last night to ensure that that payroll would be processed as soon as possible, and within the next coming days they will get that into their bank accounts.
And then just to follow up, compared to the last government shutdown, there were a lot less call-outs from TSA and government workers at the airports. What do you think the reason for that was?
I think they understand the mission of this administration and the role and the importance that they have within the government. The Department of Homeland Security specifically, we have been very dedicated to making sure that each of our employees feels appreciated, that they understand the responsibilities that they have, but also the mission for why our department was created. Our department was created in response to the terrorist attacks of 9/11. And TSA is unique because so many of the employees that I talk to that work in this agency specifically signed up because of a story tied to 9/11, because they understood the responsibility that we have to make sure that individuals getting on these airplanes are the right people, people that love this country, that want to just travel and not to commit harm and harmful acts against individuals, and that's why they serve, and that's why they joined this agency. So we're grateful for that, but I think having those conversations and supporting their families is very important. I've told many people that when you are having a crisis at home, when you're dealing with something difficult at home, you can't pay your bills or your family's struggling with a health issue, it's very difficult to do your job with excellence. It's very difficult to do your job with every part of your being when something at home isn't going right. And so that's one of the things that we worked to do during this government shutdown that was pushed on us by the Democratic senators out in Washington, D.C., was to make sure we supported our employees, took care of their families so that they could show up every single day and make sure they kept America safe.
Leslie, excuse me, Leslie Dulles for Fox 26 KRIB here in Houston. Does DHS support classifying TSA agents as essential with guaranteed pay to prevent this situation from happening again?
You know, that's something that we're definitely having conversations still with the administration and the White House on. Absolutely, every single one of the agents in front of us, I believe, are essential. I think that these employees at the Department of Homeland Security are essential because they are a national security agency. The task of the Department of Homeland Security is to ensure the safety of every person who's in this country, would leave or come into this country. We have authorities and jurisdictions over every single product or good that is in this country or leaves this country and comes in. And then also jurisdiction over the internet, what's said or communicated or sold. So it's broad authorities, and the people that make sure that we do our jobs every single day are essential to making sure that our security is guaranteed.
Last question.
Basically, a donation. Is there any specific amount of money to be designated to the workers in general? Unions?
You know, we have, because of reevaluating and being efficient and being diligent with taxpayer dollars, have $2,025 that have been left over from some of the savings that we've been able to negotiate on different contracts and different spending requirements that when this administration came in. We will be utilizing that to make sure these bonuses are paid. But no, we're going to be recognizing employees who served with exemplary service. They will be getting $10,000 checks, each of them, and we will continue to recognize all of them that we believe are extremely deserving serving during such a difficult time as this. Anything else? Okay.
All right, folks, you were listening in once again to an earlier briefing from today with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem talking about these bonuses for TSA agents who continued to work and didn't call out and continued to do their duties amid the ongoing government shutdown at that time, shutdown which is now concluded. Speaking of which, we spoke with an expert earlier today about what could come next, because we know it might take a bit to bounce back as far as normal operations and such. So we'll have more for you after this break. 2 minutes from now. Stay with us here on Live Impact News. All right, back here with some breaking news, folks. We've been keeping an eye for the last hour or so here on Live Impact News. If you are just catching up, we've been following a fire, 2-alarm fire in Southeast Charlotte, still trying to suss through exactly what kind of building this is impacting, mostly because this is an area where actually we can see, you can actually see with your own eyes here, it looks like there's actually a business off to the right-hand side that's designated on the map there, a wrecking service. There's also, it looks like, a community called the Park at Ferentino, which is rather close and might even be the complex that could be impacted. We're just not sure at this point, only because Charlotte Fire, while confirming that it has said this is a 2-alarm fire, essentially dispatching multiple firehouses to the scene at this point, has only given us a general blockage for this scene. So it is the 8100 block of Woodscape Drive, in which we see multiple types of buildings. Like we mentioned before, we do have a crew on the way to the scene, so we're going to try to get our eyes on this. If we can give you a live look at that scene sometime here during Live Impact before 9 o'clock, we will definitely do that. The other thing of note, which we had prefaced before, does not necessarily mean major wide-scale injuries. We have confirmation, though, from Medic that it is sending what is called its mass casualty unit. And we've reported on this before because essentially it's a mobile unit where first responders can kind of get medical care if they need, or treat a large number of people with injuries if needed. All that Medic has told us as far as the fact that it's got its mass casualty bus going is saying that it has multiple units en route, and it is also trying to provide support services for our firefighters or fire partners. So I will also mention this as well, because the last time I specifically spoke about the mass casualty unit in regards to a fire that was underway was over this past summer, and it was actually because the heat was so high, so it was so hot at that time that they actually sent that mobile unit kind of like a cooling center for firefighters who were responding to a house fire at the time. And so it really didn't have anything to do with lots and lots of people being injured and them needing to treat them. It was really kind of supplementary as far as a support service for the fire team. So as we get more information, we'll definitely pass it along. We pointed this out before on the map. You can see a little spot of red though on Village Lake Drive. Keep in mind this is near Monroe Road, north of Village Lake. So we've got a little spot of red approaching the intersection of the actual roadway where the scene is reported. So there could be a very large first responder presence, maybe lots of fire trucks there. The ambulances are visible. There might even be police on scene. Folks might be slowing down to take a peek, or, well, we haven't gotten official word of this, there's possibly some blockages that are actually happening on the street itself, slowing down folks. And actually, in real time, we just saw this just before our very eyes a few moments ago. Village Lake Drive slowdowns updating and growing. So even more red than when I first even started talking about the delays here. So great call too, Sean, zooming out on that map, because we're seeing kind of a better look at exactly where all those slowdowns are taking place. So kind of between Monroe Road and Independence Boulevard, you can see all that east and westbound red there on Village Lake Drive. Safe to say at this point that if you don't have to be in this area, you should probably steer clear, as there's going to be a large presence and at the very least slowdowns for drivers in the area. We'll remind you too, we got a crew on the way, possibly some live images in just a little bit. So stay with us here on Live Impact News. We'll be back in a couple minutes. We're going to take a quick break, likely getting you an update on this breaking news on the other side, as well as what we mentioned before, what comes next now that the government shutdown has concluded. Welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. We want to talk about this government shutdown. It's now concluded, and we've been kind of warned by various officials in different agencies that it could take a while for things to get totally back up and running. And there's also kind of this looming question of what comes next, not just in the short term, but what could come next in the longer term, but not that much longer, considering that this is kind of just a temporary funding bill that's been pushed through. And it does raise the question of whether we could see a shutdown all over again when this temporary resolution expires, essentially. So with that, our anchor for Live Impact in the dayside hours did a great, insightful interview with an expert on this, on what comes next. So let's take a listen.
All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Carlene is also here in studio, so let's get to it. You probably woke up this morning and learned the news that the government shutdown is over. A historic shutdown as far as how long we were in the shutdown. You're talking about 43 days. Now, President Donald Trump signed a government funding bill Wednesday night, ending a record 43-day shutdown that caused financial stress for federal workers who went without paychecks. And look, stranded a lot of people who were traveling at airports and generated long lines at food banks. So a lot to unpack here still. And here on the show, we want to bring back Dr. Scott Huffman, political science professor at Winthrop University. As always, good to see you again. Okay, so this was obviously, we talked about it. This is one for the record books, 43 days. A much different situation from this time last week when we spoke. Can you put into context what has played out the last few days?
Well, in essence, the short version is the Democrats caved. That's the short version. There's a slightly longer version. The Senate Democrats, the Senate Democratic leadership, were not able to fully hold their ship together. Enough members of the Senate from the Democratic side agreed to cross over and move the spending bill forward. Then it went back to the House, of course, for reconciliation, and it just needs a simple majority in the House, which the Republicans have in the House. This technically only funds the government through the end of January. So, hey, we've got this to look forward to all over again, possibly. The interesting thing for the Democrats is they really got nothing out of this. They pushed and they made a big deal about the fact that the big one beautiful bill being voted on took away subsidies for health care. Under the Affordable Care Act, everybody gets health care, and if you cannot afford to purchase it on your own, you can apply for a subsidy. Now, the Affordable Care Act is, a boon for private insurance. It's not public insurance. It's not socialism, but you can get subsidies to buy it. The bill cuts that out. That's why they were supposedly allowing the shutdown of the government. They talked a lot about SNAP benefits as well, and we heard about that. Well, that wasn't really even part of what their demands were. That just happened as a part of this shutdown, but it wouldn't have happened actually if the Trump administration hadn't ordered the withholding of funds. So we kind of see two things going on at the same time. Trump administration is really trying to put pressure on the folks who see the Democratic Party as the party that supports them. And when they lose SNAP benefits, they're going to be wondering why the Democratic Party is causing the shutdown. Now, the interesting side of that is public opinion was mostly against the Republicans on the shutdown. But the Democrats essentially had to give in at some point. They got absolutely nothing for it except a promise to maybe consider in December possibly voting on returning those ACA subsidies, which, of course, isn't going to happen.
I was just about to ask you that. I mean, look, we have this promise, not even on paper, that they will possibly vote on Affordable Care Act subsidies come December. That's, that could happen, right? But in reality, will that happen? Could that happen? I mean, you alluded to it, but it seems like a long shot.
It's a long shot that the vote even happens. If it does happen, it won't pass. So it's a promise to maybe do something that you'll fail at. And of course, promises don't mean anything in the world of politics, and every lawyer, and most of our legislators are lawyers, can tell you if it's not written down in a contract and signed, it's not enforceable. So first off, only getting an agreement to a vote, even if it were written down, would still be taking an L for the Democrats. But not even getting it in writing, so to speak, is really not. However, they will try and keep this shutdown in the forefront of the voters' minds. I can guarantee you next year, next September, you'll see ads essentially saying last year the Republicans allowed the government to be shut down in order to take away your health care. Don't let that happen again, things like that. So they will try and keep this in the forefront of the news. The problem with doing that is our news cycle will be past this maybe by the end of our chat. At this point, we're going to be hearing more about Epstein tomorrow than we are about government shutdown. So it will be in the Democrats' best interest to, once the shutdown's over, to keep the fact that it was shut down in the forefront of the voters' minds next year.
So,
all right, folks, we're going to get back to that as soon as we can. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we are just now getting our crew here to the scene of this 2-alarm fire. We're waiting for this to kind of stabilize the shot, but in 2 minutes we'll be back. From what I can tell, it looks quite large. So please stay with us here on Live Impact News. All right, welcome back, folks. We want to bring you to some breaking news we've been following out of Southeast Charlotte. Let's go ahead and take you to this breaking scene that we're following. This is from our crew who just got there on scene in the 8100 block of Woodscape Drive. This is kind of a far back look, so you can kind of see we're set back and zooming in quite a bit, but you just saw a second ago, we've got a look at not only the fire crews, but also you can see some of that smoke that is coming from what appears to be still a pretty actively burning building of sorts. We mentioned our crews a little ways back. We're still trying to figure out exactly what this is. We showed you on the map earlier that there's a business around here, and there's what appears to be a park at Ferentino, which is like a residence of some sort, like an apartment complex. We're not quite sure, but look at the scene. I mean, this is kind of the wider look as our crew is zooming out here. You can see all of the fire trucks. We mentioned this is a 2-alarm fire, so essentially that means that we've got multiple firehouses responding to this at this point. Look at that as you pan over even more all around the area, which kind of speaks to some of the delays we were seeing over on Village Lake Drive earlier. And just to kind of remind you too, so we talked about this being Village Lake Drive area near Monroe Road and Independence. This is specifically Woodscape Drive, so it's kind of an offshoot of Village Lake. It is near some bodies of waters. You can kind of see there's reflections from the water. You can see those emergency lights reflecting there on what appears to be a pond of sorts. So a few things that are kind of up in the air as far as questions. We don't know about any injuries, and we mentioned before we had confirmation from Medic that they had sent the mass casualty bus out there. We've seen them do this as kind of a precautionary measure. We've seen them do this before merely as support for firefighters. I alluded to the fact that several months back, over a very brutal summer, when firefighters were one time out fighting a fire in the middle of the summer heat, and it was quite warm, they actually sent this mass casualty bus to the scene, almost like a cooling center, if you will, for firefighters. So it doesn't necessarily mean widespread injuries, although we are asking those questions, and we hope to get you some updates as soon as possible. So there you have it, another look here live at the smoke pouring from this building. It's coming at a pretty good clip in the sense that we see it really pouring upwards. So I have to kind of guess, as we're not actively seeing flames, at least from our perspective, that it does still look like it is actively burning in some ways. And there is a very telling wide look now. You can see just the scope of the response. And reiterating here, this is a 2-alarm fire. We haven't gotten any updates from fire department here regarding additional units being sent or anything like that. But 2-alarm struck probably about an hour ago, and they have a battalion chief who's in command of both of those responses. So definitely some blockage as we're zooming even farther out. For folks who are just joining us here on Live Impact News, we just got our crew to the scene of this. We believe it could be an apartment complex fire. We're still trying to get some full details on the location, but this is in Southeast Charlotte off of Monroe Road, near Village Lake Drive. It's going to be north of McAlpine Creek Park, if you're familiar at all with that area, north of the Pines, kind of around the bodies of water that they have just north of that McAlpine Creek Park area. And it looks pretty frightening in the sense of just the number of units. So, I mean, there's clearly a concern as far as this fire is concerned about getting it under control, and still waiting to hear about what sort of injuries might be at play. Hopefully none, but we have been asking Medic those questions. Did not see any sort of a response on that front in the sense of, were there folks transported? Are there injuries? All Medic has told us within the last, I'd say, 45, 50 minutes that they have their mass casualty bus going and multiple units en route. We'll remind you that could be a precaution, does not necessarily mean mass injuries, could also just be a support for the fire crews out there. So with that, we'll go ahead and take a quick break, folks. We want to make sure that you're staying on top of the very latest. So break 2 minutes, back on the other side, hopefully with another shot, potentially with some updates if we get any more information from fire crews and from our crew on scene. So thank you so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. See you on the other side of this very quick break. Hey, folks, we continue to follow this breaking news from Southeast Charlotte. Really large fire response and medic response, from what we understand, to what we believe is an apartment complex that is on fire as we speak. This is reported as a 2-alarm fire, according to Charlotte Fire. So they've dispatched multiple units to this scene. And you can kind of get an idea of just how many crews are being sent with this live look, courtesy from our photojournalist on scene, Alex Sessom. So we can kind of see from left to right. It looks like you've got police, just based on the colors of the lights that we see flashing. I definitely am seeing some ambulance, and also you've of course got the fire trucks. That plume of smoke does appear to be coming from, it looks like almost just one building. Like we said, we think this might be an apartment complex, but it has been tough to tell. As you can see, got some blockages on the roadway. In fact, on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see what appears to be either a police officer or a firefighter standing in the road, and there is some sort of traffic control in the sense that you got emergency vehicles that are in the roadway. Here comes a car. You can kind of see if they're going to be able to get past. We saw some delays when we were watching the map earlier in the hour when we first got wind of this fire, and it does look like perhaps that person is either going to have to kind of skirt around on the shoulder, or, as we kind of see here, U-turn and turn back around. So we'll remind you of the location on this, or tell you for the first time if we have some new folks joining us here on Live Impact News. This is specifically in the 8100 block of Woodscape Drive. If you're familiar with the McAlpine Creek Park area, this is just north of there. It's north of the Pines. It is north of Village Lake Drive and just to the east of Monroe Road, just to the west of Independence Freeway. So it's an area where we do know that there are some residences. We've seen some businesses on the map as well, and we've seen some apartment complexes. So a pretty populated area, and a very large response we see from first responders. We're still waiting to hear if there are some injuries reported, but we'll remind you too that we did get confirmation from Medic that there is the mass casualty bus that has been sent to the scene, and Medic did send multiple units. We'll just kind of give you the caveat. The dispatch of a mass casualty bus does not always mean wide-scale injuries and massive injuries. It can sometimes just mean that they need some sort of mobile unit that has some sort of either cooling capacity or medical capacity for support for the fire team. And I kind of gave this example earlier. The last time we talked about it was during the summertime when there was a big fire at a house. Lots of firefighters showed up, but it was so blazing hot. They sent the mass casualty bus kind of like a cooling center. So it doesn't always mean injuries. There you can see a tighter look at the plume of smoke. Kind of hard to tell, but I think it is kind of slowing down in the sense that it's not pouring out as fast as we were seeing the last time we checked in several minutes back. Waiting to hear some more updates from our crew on scene, as well as the actual fire department. And just right on time, Alex Sessoms, our photojournalist on scene, has sent us a message saying he thinks it looks like at least 5 fire trucks, many firefighters, EMS down the hill away from him, apartment building. There's the top floor beam showing, which you actually can kind of see. He's zoomed in on that. So he says some fire slightly visible from what he can tell. This is as of the last couple of minutes. So thank you to Alex for that update and for this live look. We're going to kind of keep an eye on this in the background. We'll watch for any new updates. And with that, you might remember last few minutes ago, we were checking in with the very latest in the concluded now government shutdown, what comes next. So we're going to bring you back to that interview in progress from just a bit ago today between our Nick Sturdivant and Dr. Scott Huffman, who's a Winthrop University professor of political science, talking about essentially what comes next now that the shutdown has concluded. Don't forget, more breaking updates on this fire as soon as we get more information.
Impact politically? Probably no one, because of the news cycle, right?
In the end, it's not going to feel, no one's going to feel any heat immediately. Every time there's a shutdown, and there have been plenty of times this just happened to break a record, it is usually laid at the feet of the administration. No matter what's going on in Congress, it's usually laid at the feet of the administration. And this time, the public generally was putting it on Trump's lap. The problem is the people who are Trump's core supporters don't hear any messaging other than the messaging that is pro-Trump. And the people who would never even consider anything Trump did to be good only hear messaging that agrees with their beliefs. So, really, when we look at the people who could turn elections in North Carolina and purple states, which are going to be the states that matter, those people blamed a little more on the Republicans than the Democrats this time. To the degree somebody, quote unquote, won, the Republicans didn't have to give in on anything, and that's sort of what people are pointing to.
We talk about the long-term consequences as far as healthcare, right? That is the mountain that Democrats were essentially wanting to die on. This is what they were championing. But what are the long-term consequences that we're not thinking about, right, outside of healthcare, when it comes to the impact and the fallout from the shutdown?
Well, partially from the shutdown, one thing the Democrats did get is a promise that many of the people who had been just straight up laid off, fired for lack of a better term during the shutdown, not put off and said, oh, you'll come back when the shutdown's over, but the shutdown was used as a reason to just fire them. They're supposedly coming back. To the degree that things like that continue, we will feel little trickles of it. Some groups will feel it at one time, other groups at another. Let me give you an example. Some of the people who were fired at the beginning of the shutdown were from the Department of Education. But they are from a very specific part of the Department of Education that oversees the IDEA program, which is the program where federal funds are given to schools where kids with special needs, or IEPs, they're regular ed kids, but they may need speech therapy or something like that. Those funds are administered and overseen by a federal agency, even though most of the money comes from the state. So you might see a parent, somebody who's watching this, who's listening to this, whose child has an IEP, they could be affected down the road because of specifically who got fired. So the long-term impact of this shutdown is just not going to be a huge asteroid that we all as dinosaurs look up and go, oh, well, we should have seen that coming. It's going to be a lot of little things. So what the Democrats have to hope, if they want to take back the House, especially in next November, they have to hope that there's a coalition of discontent where different people are upset about different aspects that are rolling out because of Trump's executive orders and actions taken during this shutdown.
One final question before I get you out of here, Scott. Thank you for your time again. Any chance that we could be doing this all over again come at the end of January? What are the chances? Are you seeing anything out there that signals to that?
Okay, could it happen? Yes, absolutely. There's a 100% chance it could happen, especially given this Congress. Will it happen? There's a better possibility than you would normally say at this point. We continue to kick the can down the road when it comes to a budget. We actually hadn't had a new budget in so much longer than people realize. We were just passing continuing resolutions, which kept funding at their previous levels. So we're kind of kicking the can down the road. We could see this crop up just after the holidays yet again. The higher the degree of polarization in Congress, the more likely it is if all branches of government aren't fully funded and it takes a separate bill for each branch and for each agency.
As always, thank you for your time. Thank you for the context. I could chat with you for another hour on this, but I won't. I know you
All right, folks, that is once again our Nick Sturdivant from earlier today, talking about what could come next as the government shutdown has been resolved, at least for now. We've got this breaking story we've been following, this 2-alarm fire in Southeast Charlotte. Our crews remain on scene. We're still digging for information, and we're going to have much more on this and other stories after the break here. 2 minutes. Stay with us here on Live Impact News. Back here to the breaking news we've been following out of Southeast Charlotte. Thanks for being with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Got our crew here still at this 2-alarm fire. Big response we can see from fire, medic, and it looks like police who are doing traffic control in this area. This is off of Monroe Road and Village Lake Drive. It's north of McAlpine Creek Park. Still seeing a whole lot of smoke coming from this building, and our crew is telling us that really it does appear as though there are some flames. I know we can't see it from this angle, but he appears to have some sort of vantage point where there are some sort of flames visible from where he's been able to get around. I know that there are some blockages and we're being kept a far distance away, but I mean, this is really quite the response that we're seeing. I believe I see beyond the trees here what could be a ladder truck. And we talked about this being 2 alarms, so we know that there are multiple units being dispatched to this scene, a couple of firehouses, and as well the medic folks telling us that this is a mass casualty bus response as well. They've got multiple routes en route, including that mass casualty bus, which we've kind of given you the caveat not to read too much into that it doesn't necessarily mean there are mass casualties. Sometimes it's sent as a support for fire crews or as a precaution in case there are any injuries that they determine after the fact that are needing a lot of immediate care, and lots of folks perhaps needing that care all at once. Nevertheless, it's something that we continue to monitor as far as what injuries could be, but so far we've not heard of any sort of injuries from officials there on scene. So this is the 8100 block specifically of Woodscape Drive. It is possibly an apartment complex, although we mentioned there are a few other buildings around here, including a wrecking service, and it looks like there are residences as well. So this is a scene we'll continue to watch very closely here on Live Impact News and get you updates. Within, I'd say, the next 10 minutes or so, anything new coming in, we'll get you here on Live Impact. If it happens to come in after 9 o'clock, we'll got you covered here on WCNC Plus as our 11 o'clock news comes on the broadcast. So With that, actually, we wanted to talk about another breaking scene. Are we ready to go with this? This crash. Okay, so I see y'all just queued this up into our feeds here. This is in Charlotte as well, 77 southbound. We have crash reported at mile marker 9. So this is near Wilkinson Boulevard. That ramp is closed right now, as you could see. Already kind of a tricky area, I feel like, for folks who kind of merge around this area. You know, that's kind of a tight squeeze, and it's just that one lane, and it looks like, unfortunately, now that one lane is taken up with this scene. Medic is here as well. We could see a couple of units dispatched. It looks like you might have a couple vehicles involved, maybe 3, at least from what we can tell from this live look, and a car that potentially has hit that concrete barrier. You can see the front end is smashed in, and that car is sideways in the barrier itself. Checking our list here of updates regarding this specific scene, it does look like our team has reached out to Medic to see if there are any injuries. Response back within the last minute or so, Medic is telling us 3 patients, non-life-threatening injuries, and so we will watch to see if that is where the count stays or if there are any sort of updates on the injury front regarding that. Needless to say, this is going to be an area to steer clear of. So once again, this is 77 southbound over by mile marker 9. So this is near Wilkinson Boulevard. I'm going to quickly here, if y'all bear with me, folks, pull up the DOT updates on this, because sometimes they give us an ETA on when the lanes could clear. All right, it looks like we've got this with us for potentially another 40 minutes or so. DOT is telling us 9:31 is the possible clearing time for this scene. We'll also, and we say this all the time with any sort of crash and first responder response, if you are happening to pass by, you can see there's still some lanes of traffic on the interstate itself. There's some delays, by the way. You can see that live look at that map. So definitely folks slowing down. But you saw in the live look that there were, there's the ambulance, there's the medic truck there on the shoulder. Don't forget that move over law. We want our first responders to stay safe, and any sort of responding units. Sometimes you get the tow truck out there with the amber lights. You just want to make sure everyone is staying safe. So if you are avoiding the ramp but passing by the scene on the actual interstate lanes themselves, make sure that you're slowing down or moving over, giving that extra lane of padding, if you will, where they don't have to worry about being struck by a vehicle that has come too close to their scene as they're responding. And sadly, not just here in the Carolinas, but nationwide, there are so many, unfortunately, reports of this happening, to the point where we do have states that have come up with these move over laws, including here in North Carolina. So once again, 77 southbound, mile marker 9 ramp, that's the Wilkinson Boulevard ramp, fully closed due to a crash involving 3 folks injured, and it looks like a car into a concrete barrier. I know we're coming up on time quickly. Jeb, I want to kind of just pick your brain here really quick. Any new updates on the fire? Do we feel like we want to check in with the very latest that we had with our chat?
Yeah, rehash. I mean, we have that shot. So
okay, let's hit that. Okay, yeah, and look at that. I mean, we're zoomed in just a bit. You see the smoke that's coming? I can actually see some of the water being sprayed. And I know we talk about this a lot when we talk about fires, is what color is the smoke. It's hard to say, obviously, because it's nighttime, so everything kind of looks white and gray, but the darker colors usually mean that materials are burning still.
Right.
And the white is more, potentially steam, if you will. And I can see, can you see the water being sprayed?
I think they're probably putting out hot spots given when this fire began and the colors that we're seeing of the smoke. I will tell you, that does seem to be the whiter steam variety, which suggests a large portion of the flames have been put out. But per our photographer who's on the scene, he says within the last 5-10 minutes he has seen flames. Whether or not those are the original fire or different hot spots that they're putting out, obviously we don't know yet. And speaking of information we don't know but are working to get, no word yet on any injuries, what may have caused this fire. Obviously we've seen a massive response. Anytime you have an apartment fire that looks like it's grown something larger than a stovetop fire, you do traditionally see a larger response from fire departments around the area. But between the 2-alarm fire and that mass casualty unit, which, as you said earlier, could be used for a number of reasons, we still don't know why. We hope all the firefighters are all right. We hope that it had nothing to do with that. Sometimes it's just a precaution. Obviously, it's cold out there. You don't know. But a very interesting scene right now in Southeast Charlotte. But I will say, if there were to be any quote-unquote good news in a dark situation, this white smoke is better than if we were seeing black or dark gray smoke.
Yeah, and the other update I think we could probably share with folks is, once again, we're kind of piecemealing a lot of information together by having our crew there on scene and just relaying information back. Our photojournalist Alex has shared that the complex does indeed look to be called the Park at Ferentino, which is what, when we plugged in the block and the street that Charlotte Fire gave to us, that was what came up. So he seems to believe that that is indeed the complex that is impacted by this. So we shared before a map, but this is the kind of Southeast Charlotte area that is just north of McAlpine Creek Park. There's Monroe Road. As it intersects with Village Lake Drive, essentially you would come up Village Lake Drive and turn immediately onto Woodscape Drive. This is where this fire is. And there's some bodies of water. They appear to be like little ponds, and we've kind of seen some of those ponds in the shot. We're kind of across the pond, if you will, zoomed in really tightly on this building. But just to kind of give you an idea of exactly where we are in the Charlotte area, it's north of McAlpine Creek Park, and it's south of Mason Wallace Park. And we talked about this mass casualty deployment. You know, Medic had told us that they had, perfect. There you can see the delays, some blockages. We're going to have much more for you folks. I know time is up here on Live Impact. Join us at 11. We'll have an update for you. Thanks for being with us.